Hi there. I'm Mike McLean. Welcome to Tech Society. And today, what I want to talk a little bit about is what to do if your PC is running a little bit sluggish. I get asked about this quite a lot, and it's not that difficult. There's a number of things you can do, ranging from really simple and doesn't take any time at all to things that are a little more complex. And of course, the more complex you get, the more risk that you're entailing, which is why I always say before you do anything involving your operating system, make sure your data is backed up. Make sure anything that you never want to lose is going to be backed up. So let's take a look at some of the things you can do. I'm going to start out small, and then we'll go ahead and some of the more interesting things that you can do. Some things that some people don't even think about is, do you leave your computer running all the time? A lot of us do. A lot of maintenance stuff happens in the early hours when you're no longer doing things, and we forget to turn it off sometimes. So if you do, you might want to consider restarting your system maybe once a week or so. I'm just going to the start window here and going to the power button, and I just do a restart. Obviously, I'm not going to do this because that would really mess up this recording session. Sometimes I'll actually just do a shutdown just to make sure that everything clears itself out, all the capacitors get a chance to discharge and everything else, just to make sure that everything is really copacetic and it goes through a complete restart cycle. That often helps too. Another thing you may want to consider is looking for Windows updates. For that, I'm going to go to the Start menu and launch Settings. Most of the stuff I'm going to talk about are here in Settings. And I'm going to go down to Windows Update. And you can check for updates. Most Windows systems will automatically check for updates, but they'll only automatically download the really crucial ones. There are some that Microsoft considers kind of optional, and they may not install for quite a while unless you actually do a check for updates. People that hit that check for update button, Microsoft calls them early birds, and they're willing to give updates that they're kind of hanging on to for a little bit longer. They'll send those to you immediately. Another thing to consider when you're doing updates is go to Advanced Options, and you can turn it on to receive updates for other Microsoft products that you might have installed. This was really a big thing for Office before Office went to the subscription model. Now, if you have Office or Microsoft 365 installed, all that stuff's going to be kept up to date automatically. You don't really need to worry about that. But you could have something else from Microsoft installed there. Another good one is optional updates. This is drivers that Microsoft may detect that's on your system. It's not a Microsoft product, but it'll go ahead and try to get the update for you anyway. And as you can see, I don't have any optional updates, so I'm caught up on there. Another thing you may want to consider doing is make sure that you empty your recycle bin every now and again. Some of us forget that, and our recycle bin will just fill up with files. If we get a bunch of them in there, that could slow things down a little bit. And going back to Windows System, another thing to consider is your storage. Do you have enough storage space? And again, I went to System. I'm going to Storage here. And this will tell me how much storage space I actually have free. I have about a 4 terabyte drive, about 3.5 terabytes once you're done with the overhead that any system will take up. And it's checking it out now, trying to figure out how many apps I have installed. And it'll tell me. And all I need to do is look at the bar here and see, yeah, I have more than enough room. Once you get down below, say, 100 gigs that are free, Windows can run into problems with that because it takes a lot of extra space when it installs updates, several gigabytes, in fact. So when it gets up to a point at 90%, it'll start giving you a warning. And at that point, you may want to consider updating your storage requirements. One thing to consider when you're talking about storage, if you have an older system that has a traditional magnetic hard drive with read-write heads, one way that you'll really be able to speed things up is if you go to a solid state drive, an SSD. Since they are solid state, that gets rid of all the slowdown that you get with read and writes on a traditional drive. So if you've got a system that's like 5 or 6 years old, you may want to consider going for something like that. All right, what are some of the other things that we can do? Well, we can take a look and see if there's any apps that we may not need anymore. I can go to installed apps. and say that you've installed a bunch of trialware, things you wanted to try out, you never used them, but they're still here. And you can go to installed apps and see what you have installed. And if you see something you don't no longer want, you could just go over here and click uninstall. Programs used to come with their own uninstall routine. A lot of them don't anymore. They just figure you'll use this instead. Another thing to look at is, do you have a lot of software or a lot of programs that are launching automatically that you may not even be aware of? I'm going to go to Task Manager. So I go to the start bar on TASK. There's Task Manager. I'm going to open that up. And this shows all the processes that are running. And when you look at this, by the way, you may want to see if things are really slowed down, see if you have a runaway process, see if there's any process that's taking up like 100% of your CPU or your memory. And if so, you can always stop that by right-clicking on it and do End Task. And then you'll probably want to do a restart anyway in order to make sure everything's working the way it should. But I can also go here to Startup Apps. And this has all the things that are enabled. I've actually sorted it out before by status. These are all the things that are launching when I start up. And down here are the ones that I've actually stopped from launching. So you can go through here and decide, are there things launching that I really don't need? And some of them you'll probably want to check out, like CNMNSST. You'll want to search for that. Just Google it, and it probably is a Windows thing. Any Windows file, I probably basically leave alone because I assume they know what they're doing. So just another thing to look at for these little memory hogs. Okay, what else can we go for here? Well, one thing you can do is when you go to File Explorer again, and let's look at those drives. I'm going to go to File Explorer and I'm going to go to my system here, my computer, and here's all the drives I have available to me. My C drive, I have an external hard drive, Google Drive is here, and I have a network attached storage, a network drive that I've got here. If I click on one of these, usually the C drive is what I'm going to look at, and I right click on it, I can go to Properties. And I can go to Tools, and I can do a system check on my drive. Again, don't really need to do this on a solid state drive, on a newer drive. Windows takes care of that automatically. Same with Optimize. Optimize is the fancy name for defrag. Again, SSDs don't really need to worry about that. So, but if you have an older system, this is something else that you can check out. Okay, make sure that all that's running. And I think that that's most of what I had to talk about, except for one thing. I'm going to go back to Windows settings. If you've done all this and you're just not getting a satisfaction for what's going on, there is something else you can do here. So you can go to System and go to Recovery. And this has a couple options for you. The first is fix problems without resetting your PC. This leads to troubleshooting diagnostics. You could try these, see how well they work for you. Otherwise, there's a couple of options that they now provide. One is fix problems using Windows Update. Reinstall now. What this will do is it will download a fresh version of Windows using Windows Update and reinstall it over what's there. It should not disturb your apps, your files, and your settings. Again, I never trust this, never will, so make sure that everything is backed up. You've got a solid copy of it beforehand. If that doesn't work, you can reset the PC. Same thing, a little more drastic. Choose to keep or remove your personal files, and then basically it does a complete reinstall of Windows. So you can always try that. And I believe that is pretty much what I had available there. So hopefully some of this will work for you. And if not, you may want to consider attending our user group meetings and asking the question there, and we can get a little more specific. That's all I have for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll be seeing you.